Boom, 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 boom. Now, what am I not doing right? How come I can't get anybody in?
Everybody's in.
Oh,
So,
they are?
yeah,
I
everyone's in.
don't see anybody. What am
Um,
I doing wrong?
Perhaps change your view to gallery view.
Gallery view. I don't even see that.
It's in the top
Gallery
right
view.
corner.
Huh. I see participants 5. I don't know. Top right corner. I don't know.
What's
What am
on
I
your
not
screen?
doing right?
What's on your screen right now, Reg?
Oh, all I see is me. I see me and like a picture of the cafe.
Oh, okay. Dang.
Oh, what's up, bro? Okay, I got you.
You
So
got
what
me
am I
now?
doing wrong, Dimitri? Yeah.
Well, I don't
I,
know. I think
Oh, I
because
see.
I'm talking. So
no, I see
either.
it's whoever's talking. You
Oh,
have it on speaker views, top right corner. There's going to be about 3 or 4x4 box. There's like a little 4x4 box that says view right next to it. It's super tiny. You click on that, and then it says speaker view, and then it says gallery view. Click gallery view.
oh man. Of course I'm lost. Thanks for your help.
Nah, it's cool.
Who are you? Do I know you?
Not new.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. So one more time. Okay, I'm up in the right hand corner.
Oh yeah, right hand corner, right under the little X, like on the right hand corner of the black bar. It says view.
Oh,
There's a little box next to it.
Obviously I'm doing something wrong because I'm looking at participants 5 and I see my picture, I see you now, but I don't see this little box you're talking
Okay.
about.
All right. I see. Because actually, so you see participants 5
I see participants 5.
right next to that little arrow on the left. There's going to be like 2 little squares. There's kind of like an indented
This one.
square with 4 corners. There's another one that looks like an app sign with a bunch of squares that make a bigger square.
Huh. Well, okay. I think I'm clicking it, but I don't know. I
Okay.
still see you and I see myself, but I don't see everybody else. But maybe when they have to
Right
talk.
next to it.
All right, somebody else. Hold on, wait. Somebody else is coming in. All right, there's my picture. I'm looking at my picture. There's like a little box above my picture, and to the right of that is participant 6.
What
I
about that
don't know
little
what's going.
box above your picture? What does that box say?
It doesn't say anything. It's just like a little box with like a inverted diamond,
Oh,
square
yeah,
with
yeah.
little points on it.
Okay, so that's gonna be your full screen. Is there something next to that that has other squares?
There's
I think he's talking about the chat button.
Oh, word. Yeah, it might be a chat button.
the
Um,
chat button.
well, I mean, as we talk, you'll end up seeing us.
Let me pop somebody else just entered in. Anyways, well,
You don't have to worry about admitting people. I can do that.
oh yeah? All right, Olivia, thanks. All right, so somebody speak to me so I can see whose face pops up.
Well, it'll go to whoever's speaking, basically.
All right, so what's your name, bro?
Mine is Matthew. Matthew Marroquin.
Matthew, thanks for coming through. All right, so when everybody speaks, I guess that's when I'll see them. I imagine,
Yeah.
because I don't know. Okay, here. Wait a minute. That just okay. I just hit something, but that just made your face bigger on my screen.
You just
What
full
am I
screen.
doing? Yeah, what am I doing facilitating a workshop and I can't even work the gadget? That's a shame. Anyway, so welcome everyone. I'm sorry that it's this time of day, but I had to shift stuff around. I know 5 o'clock East Coast time must be weird. It's 2 o'clock over here where I'm at in San Diego. All
Hey,
right. So anyway, let's go.
Central Time.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah. Okay. So this is what we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about Sekou Sundiata. All right, who's passed away, but was like not only a mentor to me, but he was a mentor to the whole scene. And I very seriously doubt that spoken word slash poetry slash performance slash theater would be the same without his participation in the early 90s and before that. So the first time I saw Sekou was on a PBS program called Words in Your Face. And it was a half an hour show with a series of poetry vignettes. Some, I don't know, some as short as 15 seconds, some 30, some 2 minutes, whatever. There were some people whose names I knew. There actually were some people who I knew, but they were more actors as opposed to poets. And I knew Amiri Baraka and I knew Ginsberg and I knew, but I didn't know Sekou. So for the most part, Maggie Estep was in there. For the most part, the poetry was kind of boring. So what I mean is not that it wasn't good, it was kind of boring. There was no energy in it. Like these people weren't jumping through the screen. And at the time, I had never even been to the New Rican Poets Cafe because it had just reopened a few months before I ever went in there. Right. So I'm watching this show, Words in Your Face, and all of a sudden I hear a siren going off. Then I see blinking, a blinking light, and obviously I get the sense like it's the police, right? So that really immediately gains my attention. It grabs me. Okay, boom. Then here comes this tall black dude with this leather pork pie hat on, hand in his cool jacket, pointing his finger. He's walking into the screen sideways, so we're getting a side view of him. And he's walking in, he points at the camera and he starts kicking this poem. I didn't know it was a poem. He just started talking. I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I was mesmerized by this because it had so much more energy. It was so much more rhythm and musicality than anything that had happened before he showed up. All right. So I'm going to do his poem twice. I'll do it the way that I saw it the first time I ever saw him / heard him. Then I'll do it the way I saw him many times afterwards after I knew him. And it was the most amazing thing is how it changed from the time he did it on television as opposed to live performance. And so this particular poem would be this would be the epitome of the theatricalization of poetic expression, what he did. And you kind of get a feel for it when I do it the second time. But this is how it went down on the PBS Words in Your Face video. Boom. I was on my way to see my woman, but the law said I was on my way to a red light. If you saw my woman, you could understand if I did, but I didn't. It wasn't about no light, it was about my ride. And if you saw my ride, you could dig that too, you dig. Sunroof, stereo, radio, black leather bucket seat sitting low. You know, the body's cool, but the tires are worn. Ride when the hard time come, ride when they gone. In other words, the light was green. And I could wake up in the morning without a warning. My world could change. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin you're living in. Blink your eyes on the skin. Up to the window came the law with his hand on his gun. What's up? What's happening? I said, I guess that's when I really broke the law. He said, a routine. Step out the car, assume the position. Throw your hands up in the air. You know the routine like you just don't care. License and registration. Deep in the night was the light from the North Star on the car door. I could see deja vu. We've been through this before. Why did you stop me? Somebody got to stop you. I watch the news. You always lose. It's undeniable. You're unreliable. This is serious. You could be dangerous. I could wake up in the morning without a warning. My world could change. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin you're living in. Blink your eyes on the skin. New York City, they got laws. Can't no brother drive outdoors. In certain neighborhoods and certain kind of cars around certain kind of people, yeah, they got laws. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin you're living in. Blink your eyes on the skin. All depends on the skin you're living in. Blink your eyes on the skin. All depends on the skin. Then it stopped and jump cut to the police beating Rodney King down. The actual footage of them beating Rodney. That's how it stopped. He said, all of them, the skin you living in, boom, cut. And they was beating Rodney King down. And then some congas started playing, and it was a crossfade. The congas start fading. Then we're in this, I didn't know where exactly it was, but we're in this place. I figured it was in the Bronx somewhere, some burnt out building, fields, or whatever. And the bongos start playing, and then here comes Willie Perdomo, jumping up on a rock, walking through the scene, and he starts kicking Nigerican blues. And I was like, oh, yo soy Boricua, yo soy Moreno, yo. So that caught my attention. A couple of weeks later, I was at the cafe. After hearing Sekou and hearing Willie, I said, I gotta go to this place. But it was Sekou who grabbed my attention. Now I was going very fast, and that's about the same tempo that Sekou was doing. But I kind of got a sense that he had to because of the time frame involved in the shooting of the video. Now I didn't know this, until I actually heard him read the poem at the Nuyorican live. Now, the second time I ever heard him is the first time I ever saw him live. And once again, he's on the stage at the Nuyorican kicking this poem, and there's a TV crew, there's a film crew shooting him again. And I'm like, yo, I didn't know this had any, what does this got to do with poetry? Like this poem that I love so much, probably the poem I love most of any I'd ever heard, right? And now he's having it shot on film too. This is the second time I've seen some visual of him doing it. And I'm like, yo, is that where we're going? And this is 1990. This is 1990 in the spring, summer 1990. And I'm like, so is this where we're supposed to be going with this whole spoken word poetry thing? Is it supposed to be visual? Supposed to be on screen? It's supposed to. So he gets up that night, and now obviously I videotaped the words in your face, the PBS thing. I videotaped it. So now I'm watching it. Not the whole thing, but I'm definitely watching Sekou. I'm watching Willie Perdomo. I'm watching Muta Baruka, Maggie Estep, John Leguizamo, because they're all in there, dispersed in and out of this thing. So I'm watching, and I'm not watching it for entertainment. I'm studying it, and I'm trying to figure it out. So by the time I see Sekou kicking the poem at the Nuyorican, I already learned by heart the poem I saw on television. I got that down cold. And like, he gets up there, and I didn't know he was going to be there. He walks in, I'm like, oh, smack, it's dude, it's Sekou. And I'm sitting there, I wonder if he's going to kick this poem. Is he going to kick Blink Your Eyes? Sure enough, now I'll do it again, but now, and see if you can see how or hear how it changed. All right. And this is what made me understand it. Probably because of time constraints, he had to edit the poem to fit into a slot in the film. So to be on this program, they probably told him, well, we can't have this long 4 or 5 minute. You have to do it in 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. So now they're taking these beautiful art form that we all love, poetry, and all of a sudden you got these people cutting it and editing it so it can fit into their format. So once again, we've been taken advantage of. And the thing I learned about poetry from the very beginning is that besides the Nuyorican Poets Cafe and the Brooklyn Moon Cafe and the Green Mill in Chicago, which I've never been to, these are the only three, and St. Mark's Poetry Project, they're the only three places that I knew of personally that were just there for poetry. Other things happened in these buildings and these institutions, but it was mainly there for poetry. So how blessed was I or anybody who got a chance to go to the Nuyorican or St. Mark's Poetry Project or the Brooklyn Moon Cafe or the Passaic County Community Poetry Center, places, because everywhere else, hey, you all know, you're in a bar, right? You read poetry in a bar. There's waitresses and waiters passing out drinks. The cashier thing is clinging. You're so disruptive. But the thing, and it happened at the Nuyorican too, and the other places, but at least at the Nuyorican, when somebody starts kicking poems, it's almost like a rule that all that business and action stops. It did back in the day. Like ain't nobody passing no drinks, nobody's hitting the cash register, and there's no change in money, no talking going on. People started to spit. It was like, okay, there was a reverence, almost a spirituality to it. Okay, so now Sekou gets up, and I'm all excited, like, yo. And he starts out like this. He says, what is? What is the mathematics of today? What can I say? So I'm sitting there like, well, I guess he ain't gonna read my poem, right? I'm listening to what he said, but what is the, and I said, oh well. So I was a little bit down at this point, not depressed, but like, damn, I thought he was gonna kick my poem, man. And dude, that was the preface. And when I finally saw the poem on the page, it was written like that, and the dedication was to Sterling Brown. So the preface, what is the math? What is the mathematics? What is the mathematics of today? What can I say? I was on my way to see my woman, but the Lord said I was on my way through a red light, red light, red light, red light. If you saw my woman, you could understand I was just being a man. So from just that point, he's already changed. Because if you saw my woman, you could understand that I did, but I didn't. So from the time I heard it on TV to the time I heard it live, he had already edited and shifted and added something. Now it probably was there before he shot it, and because of time constraints, but now it's a whole different experience. And so one lesson that everybody could take who's sitting here now, when you are theatricalizing your poetry, remember there are techniques you can use that don't mess with your poetry. It doesn't do anything to mess with your poetry. It enhances people's ability to remember it. So to be able to preface, now I don't invite anybody to preface poetry ever. Like, oh, my name is so and so, and the reason I wrote this poem is because here, the name of this poem is Scarface, and the reason I call it that is because I fell off the back of a truck and I had this big scar on my head, and I would go to school and they would make fun of me, calling me Scarface and blah blah blah. Blah. That's prefacing a poem. That's not theatricalizing your poem. And as Steve Cannon would say, read the damn poem. So prefacing is not something you want to do to theatricalize your poetry. But take Sekou's example at the top of Blink Your Eyes. He said, what is the mathematics? So now here's a guy who's standing on stage in front of 200 people, and he has the confidence to say a word and don't even say it all the way through, or to repeat it a couple of times, or start high, go low, start low, go high, but pulling the audience in. This is one of the first rules in dramatizing or theatricalizing your poetry: recurring theme or reprise. Now, here's an example. So, those of you who don't really understand what it's a musical theater term, reprise or recurring theme, something that happens again but in different spots. What is the what is the mathematics? What is the mathematics of today? What can I say? I was on my way to see my woman, but the Lord said I was on my way through a red light, red light, red light, red light. If you saw my woman, you could understand I was just being a man. It wasn't about no light, it was about my ride. And if you saw my ride, you could dig that too. You dig? Sunroof, stereo, red. Now here's another technique that he used. He said sunroof, stereo, ray, ruh, 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 ruh. He started saying it like the battery of his car was failing. That's how he started. And he was listening to music in his cassette or whatever, and the car battery started to die, and he started to die his voice. That's a technique that you can use, and it'll be connected to the car he was talking about earlier. All right, and he'll talk about it again. But he went sunroof, stereo, radio, sunroof. Then he went back to regular sunroof, stereo, radio, black leather bucket seat sitting low. You know, the body's cool, but the tires are worn. Ride when the hard times come, ride when they go on pause. In other words, the light was green. And I could wake up in the morning without a warning. My world could change. All depends on the skin. Another device. He took the S, the sibilant S sound in skin, and he held it. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin. You live in there. Blink your eyes on the skin. Skin up to the. So that's another device. He took the sibilant sound, because a sibilant sounding S, when you're in live performance, it's almost like taking a piece of chalk and scratching it on a blackboard. Almost the same effect. Not as harsh, but the same effect. At the very least, it will draw a person's attention to you and make them lean forward in their chair as opposed to pulling back. So skin, all depends on the skin you live in. Blink your eyes on the skin, up to, and then he goes right into the next verse without even saying skin, because now you know. You've heard that sibilant sound, so you know what he's talking about. But the sibilant sound, which we can equate to chalk on a blackboard, which none of us like, all right? So this, you don't want to get stopped by the cops. So that's that sound symbolism. You do not want to be stopped by the police. All depends on this. Then he goes right into up to the window came the law with his hand on his gun. So he used this sibilant sound to set you up for the tension that's going to happen when the cop comes. Black leather buckets, he's sitting low. You know, the body's cool, but the tires one. Ride when the hard times come, ride when they go. In other words, the light was green. So why was you stopping me? If the light was green, now all of a sudden you pulling me over. I was in the right. Why you pulling me over? Skin. All depends on this. Up to the window came the law with his hand on his gun. What's up? What's happening? I said, I guess that's when I really broke the law, right? And so now in his performance, I don't think this was scripted, but when you write really dope poetry and you want to theatricalize it or dramatize it, all you got to do is know how you're supposed to feel when you're saying the words. If the words don't tell you how you should feel, then you don't know what to do. And what I mean by do, you don't know what actions to take. Do you move? Do you stand still? Do you take your hands? Do you do the Bruce Lee choreographed performance poetry dance? What do you do? But if you know how you're supposed to feel, then you just can like stay open to the moment and do it. So now I remember now, Sekou, when I saw him, he didn't do it in the video, the words in your face video, but in live performance, dude he went, he started going like this. And this was just hip hop move. This was hip hop movement at the time. Just this. That was a dance. Cats, MCs would get up on stage with a dance would get and just do that. That was it. And so Sekou was like, up to the winner came the Lord. And he said, what's up? What's happening? And that's when I said, I really broke the law. He said a routine, step out the car, assume the position. Then he went, throw your hands up in the air. You know the routine like you just don't care. License and registration. Now I know he didn't script that. I know he didn't choreograph it, but he knew how he felt in that moment. And just through improvisation or just whatever, he just throw your hands up in the air. Like that's what the words say in the poem. Throw your hands up in the air. Like you just don't care. But we all know where that comes from. That's hip hop. Throw your hands up in the air like you just don't care. And he said, boom, stop, license and registration. Now I'm leaning forward. Everybody in the place is leaning forward because he got us all mesmerized by not only the words, not only the text, because the text is full of imagery. It's efficient. It's full of all kind of musical, technical aspects, right? He's got it all cold down. So we're all leaning forward. And then, all right, deep in the night was the light, and he didn't go deep. Now, the next line is deep in the night was the light from the North Star on the car door. I could see deja vu. We've been through this before. Why did you stop me? Now, that's the past of the poem. But Homeboy, because now he's like in full flight. He goes deep, pulls away from the microphone, deep, deep in the night was the light from the North Star on the car door. I could see deja vu. We've been through this before. He stops. Why did you stop me? Almost conversational, leaning forward. Like, why did you stop me? Then he pulls back off the mic and he goes, somebody, body, 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 body. And he's pulling back and forth off the mic. Somebody, body, 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 got to stop you. Boom. I watch the news, you always lose. It's undeniable. You're unreliable. This is serious. You could be dangerous. I could wake up in the morning without a warning. My world could change. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin you're living in. Blink your eyes on the skin. All depends on New York City, they got laws. Can't no, and then he pulled it. New York City, they got laws. He's flying through it. New York City, they got laws. Anyway, can't no brothers drive outdoors. And stopped and just held it. Can't no brothers drive outdoors. In certain cars, in certain neighborhoods, in and around certain kind of people. Yeah, they got laws. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin you're living in. Blink your eyes on the skin. All depends on the skin. All depends on the skin. And he went, skin you're living in. And he walked. He left the stage. And people lost their mind. They lost their mind. And me too, because now I've seen two different interpretations of this thing. One was diluted, and I thought it was dope when I saw it on the screen on television. I thought it was dope. It was dope. It was amazing. When I saw it live, I realized how people who are not artistic seem to be trying to manipulate those of us who are artistic and somehow either get paid or get recognition or get something off of our our artistic brilliance, but they add their 2 cents to it and it screws it up. So if Sekou did the poem the way he did it on TV, and he did it the way he did it that night in the Rican, the one live shatters the video. And if poetry is about creating imagery, then what in the world is how can you shoot it? How does it become shot? Who has the brilliance to shoot it? Right? And now the guy who was the director of this Words in Your Face thing, the PBS show where I saw Sekou, This guy's name is Mark Pellington. Now, you probably don't know the name, but if you like Pearl Jam, Mark Pellington won an MTV award back in the day for shooting the Pearl Jam video called Jeremy, which I don't even like rock and roll. But I remember when I saw Jeremy, I lost my mind. I just totally lost my mind. Any questions, comments? Anybody want to jump in and try to theatricalize some of their poetry today? Nobody? Did everybody disappear? Is this a little too? I know I'm passionate about this, but I just love. I mean, first of all, I love
I'm just trying to
poetry.
think like, how am I going to do this type of deal? You know?
Well, you don't take big bites out of it. You do not take big chunks out of it. The first key to all of this, any theatricalization of poetic expression starts with the person that wrote it. All right. So if you write a poem, all right, and I always get asked this all the time, how do you remember all this stuff, bro? How do you get off the page? Blah, 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 blah. And this is what I tell everyone. If you write something and it's heartfelt, and because you got to work at this, like Amiri Baraka says, every once in a while a poem will slap you upside your head and make you write it. But those are far and few in between. We all gonna get one or two of those in our lifetime, but the rest of it is hard, hard work. If you're working hard to express something poetically, and poetically means efficiency, imagery, there's so many technical aspects of poetry, all right, that'll lead you to the promised land. But if you're working hard at it, you know when you've written something down, if it's a gem, you know it. You know a jewel when you've written it down or when you typed it in. You know the jewel because you read it, images will pop up at you, the musicality will be jumping off out of your mouth, or it'll force you to say it. So now all of a sudden, what do you love about what you've written? The minute you come to grips with what you love about it, now, if you love every single word, then you're a genius. Because I believe every single word in anything that's ever written should be important, should be a jewel. I don't care if it's a Betty Crocker cookbook on oatmeal raisin cookies. All right. If somebody gives you a recipe, my secret recipe, it's usually extremely efficient, direct to the point, full of imagery. All right. Poetry's got to be like that. Theater's got to be like that. Fiction's got to be like that. All right. But poetry is probably the purest essence of it. That and lyrics, great simple lyrics to really great pop songs. All right. But anyway, if you have written something and you know you love it, embrace that part of it which you love. Embrace it. Embrace it. You could write a haiku, and the first five beats are dope. The second seven are really wonderful. The next five are okay. Embrace the seven beats in the middle line that you love. You could write a sonnet. All right, 14 lines in iambic pentameter. Every other line rhymes, but there's some rhymes in there that you love better than others. All right, embrace it. So the first rule of theatricalizing anything that's poetic that you've written, find the gem that you love, all right? And just know it. You need to know this like you need to know it. Like you know your name if the cops kicked your door down and said, "Who are you?" All right. Now, unless you're scared to death thinking they're gonna shoot you, I don't know too many people. The police come up on them and say, "Who are you?" or "Give me your you know, what's your name?" They don't even ask for ID. What's your name? Very few people start to stutter. Everybody seems to know their names in those situations, as opposed to you being some romantic liaison and you be flirting with somebody, or trying to talk to somebody, and you can be so caught up in a person's face or their eyes or whatever, you don't remember your name. All right. But if the police come, say, "What's your name?" You'll know. You need to know your poetry like that, especially the gems. So there's got to be certain parts of poems that you got to know like you know your name. And so here's the key to it. You would never forget your name. So how could you write something and forget it? How could you write a gem? How could a gem come out of your head or out of your heart and you forget it? How's that possible? All right. So it's not about remembering or memorizing. You never forget. You never forget the greatness. And if you step outside of yourself, think of the things that you remember from the time you was a little, whatever your first memories are, think about that. Why do you remember that? Why do you remember that teacher who helped lift you up? Why do you remember that bully that was taking your lunch money? All right. You don't have forget, remember, you don't forget those things. All right. All right. Who wants to jump in? I know somebody got some brilliant questions or something.
We had a
Y'all need
question
to shut me up.
on Facebook. There was a question on Facebook. How do you
Oh,
practice
wait a
reciting
minute.
your
Oh,
poetry?
say
How
it
do you
one more time, Olivia.
how do you practice at reciting your poetry?
Well, I think this becomes semantics because I don't recite, I say. That's number one, which is a big, big difference for me. So I don't recite anything, I say it. All right. I practice it like I'm a musician. I practice it as I practice it like I play bass or trumpet or saxophone or drums or congas or the organ. All right. So even if you don't play an instrument, there are certain things that most in here, for instance, how many of you that's sitting in this session right now that have done live performance, have stood up in front of people and done live performance where you, and so that means you have to rely on your vocals, your skills as a vocalist. You're not a singer per se, but you have to rely on your skills as a vocal person. How many of you practice your vowel sounds like musicians practice the scales? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, da, 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 da. How many of you ever get up and go A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, O, U, A? Because vowel sounds, and this is something that's really important, vowel sounds are the bridge between mediocre and brilliant. Vowel sounds are the bridge between mediocre and brilliance. So that means you've got 26 letters in the alphabet, 20 consonants, right? The rest, those little vowel sounds at A, E, I, O, U, and I don't know what's with the Y. They should just forget about that. School teachers, every time I hear it, I cringe. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. Forget that, all right? But that's all you have to work with as a writer. So the vowel sounds are the key to remembering. All right. Is it easy to create rhyme schemes with consonants at the end of words? Dimitri, what poetic term do you use when the last syllable of a word rhymes with the last syllable of another word? And let's say the last syllable ends with the word with the letter T. What do you call that? What poetic device is that?
That's consonants, right?
Okay, say it again.
Consonants.
Say everybody sitting in the session. This is Dimitri Reyes, all right. And the reason I go to him, he's my go-to guy. He's an MFA guy, all right. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
That's all
He's an
right.
MFA guy, all right. And so these things are important, all right. Assonance, consonants, all these things are important. But to the person who asked about remembering or recite, how do I learn? It's through musical mascons. All right, musical mascot. And the closest we have to music in the alphabet are the vowel sounds. T, D, those are not vowel sounds. Those are not musical. Those are meant, or they're there. If you are reading poetry and you have a line after a long pass of a poem, you generally, even if you don't think about it, you generally will end this long pass or verse with a word that's got a consonant at the end of it. The consonant T or D or G or B. And that will cause you to stop. If you say the consonant correctly, it will cause you to stop. Then you can get a breath. So some brilliant writers write like that. Okay, I just did 22 words in a row. All right, I'm running out of breath. Let me end this pass with the letter T. Because when I say that and I nailed it properly, it's going to force me to stop and I can take a breath. So you organically can stop and get a pause or a break. I hope that answers the question. Anybody else? Jump in, jump in, jump. Thanks, Dimitri. That was good.
Put me on the spot, brother. I knew it was gonna happen. I was telling my wife, I was like, I
Yeah,
gotta
well,
be sharp. I gotta be
that's why
sharp.
you're here, though. Yeah, I mean, there's no sense of us being in a cipher like this
Hmm.
if everybody's not open. Because here, I know what assonance is. I know what consonance is, and I know what alliteration. I know all these terms, but it's good when people who call themselves poets are using this language.
Dialogue. Yeah.
It's semantics. All right. So if I hear you, if 9 other people sitting here with us now hear assonance and consonants, and that totally not familiar with it, like they are familiar with their middle name, they need to be familiar with it.
Word. Yeah.
So we're sitting around talking, drinking tea, hanging after reading, before reading. How often are we talking about poetic devices? So you're an MFA person. All right. I'm not. But if you and I get together, you and I have hung out together, we've been together, we talking what? We're talking about this art form.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yo, how you doing, brother? Blah, 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 da, 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 da. But I'm trying to I'm trying to get what's in your head into mine, vice versa. All right.
Word.
So that's what I think this is about, even. That
Yeah.
is, we sit and do these kind of workshops.
It's
You
and
know?
it's funny because it's like we know a lot of this stuff, right? And sometimes we could even forget just by not sitting around it for such a long time. Like
Of
I don't know
course.
how you felt with some of this stuff. But I'm so engaged with community, so not having that community because of COVID, for instance, like you forget the vocabulary and how to navigate some of those things sometimes as well. So it's really good. It's so funny. I taught consonants for a group of like middle schoolers last week, but you just asked me the easiest question of what is this, and I had to go back in my memory bank just to make sure it's recovered. So we are a certain breed. We all always have to keep talking to each other just so we could keep ourselves honest.
Yeah. And then it's another great way to use words. Because,
Hmm.
like I said, the 26 letters in the alphabet, that's all the ammunition we have.
Hmm.
All right. Unless you're bilingual or trilingual and you're able to sing, then there's other things you can use to make your vocabulary bigger. But by talking to other people who are constantly writing, you start to hear the words that they use just to describe their writing. Like, you
Hmm.
have no idea how many times I have taken words, not from somebody's poem, but a conversation I've had with someone. Oh, he just said convoluted. I'm
Oh yeah.
taking that. He wasn't reading no poem. We was having a conversation. He just said convoluted. All right. Or I'm pulling, snatching words from anywhere I can all the time. I
Word.
wrote a dope poem because I wrote a dope poem just because I was sick of hearing the word systemic.
Mm.
Just because I got sick of hearing people say it, and they were saying it like none of them meant it carried no weight.
Yeah.
So if you're a person of color, you're an immigrant, whatever, you're a Native American, and someone says systemic, but they say it like they're saying, "Oh, it's 2 o'clock," you
Yeah.
know, or let me get that, let me get a macchiati, there's no weight behind it. So I'm like, okay, I hear newscasters, I hear human beings talking about systemic, 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 and not just racism, just systemic, right?
Right.
Nobody seems to say that word with weight to it.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, I'm gonna write a poem that's gonna start with that word. And I'm gonna, by the end of this poem, that word's gonna carry some weight. That was my theme. That was my idea. And just by putting systemic down on a piece of paper, it just triggered. All right, it just triggered. So I went from just putting systemic, in the first 3 words in the first line of the poem were systemic, strategic skullduggery. If I hadn't have put systemic down, I would have never gotten to skullduggery. I ain't never used skullduggery in my life. I know what it means because my grandmoms used to call us that when we were little kids. Like, our behavior, we were up to some skullduggery behavior. All right, so I knew it had negative connotations attached to it. But that's what happened by putting systemic down and exploring for myself. What does this mean? How come when I hear it, nobody's got weight to it? There's no
Mm.
weight to it. So I wanted to write it down, and by even the end of the first line of the poem, it would have some weight to it. So systemic, strategic skullduggery. So already somebody reads it on a piece of paper, they hear me say it. There's a lot to deal with right there. Systemic, strategic skullduggery. Okay, that's got some weight to it. Anybody else? Jump in. Who wants to share? Anybody want to share? Anyone want to say hello?
I'll say this before someone else jumps in, because I have to, because you kept saying it. So, did you say systemic?
There you go. See,
I
that sibilant
can bring him
sound.
back.
And when I read it, and see, that's a great catch, because when I read it, I thought about that, but I knew not to do it out of respect for, because I know better. I couldn't pull it off. Skin, I couldn't pull it off. And for me, that's not the effect that I wanted to have. All right. But I trust me, bro. I thought about what I wrote it down. I was like, Sekou. All right. If I'm writing stuff, there's no way in the world I write anything and Amiri Baraka don't pop in my head. Never. I don't write anything and Baraka don't pop in my head. Or Steve Cannon don't like, yo, you ain't even working the language. You got all these things in your head. People telling you, like Intozaki Shange, come on, you can't be more authentic than that. So it's like, that's where my poetry comes from. It comes from these mentors and just the stuff. I love poetry. I love it. I love the way it reads. I love the way it sounds. I love the way it makes me feel. And I love it so much that I know I'm not a poet. I know that for certain. And it's going to take me years and years. I may die before I ever have the nerve or courage to call myself a poet. I got a funny feeling I'm going to go to my grave and not feel that I am that thing because I know who is.
Yeah.
That's the thing with me. I know who is.
And I feel like those people also feel the same way. There's such a big process of learning all the time, right? So it's like even when we're enjoying work or we're listening to a performance or something, we're still in a constant state of study. We're constantly incubating over these things and trying to perfect the idea of how we understand things, So it's interesting. Like poetry books, man, they're tiny. They're tiny compared to like the stuff my wife reads. She reads like 400 or 500 page books, and she'll blow through a book like that, and I stay on that 75 pages for such a long time because there's so much depth and so much within that white gap when you're looking at in between the words and trying to think of all these different devices like sibilants and consonants, assonance, alliteration, all that kind of stuff for rhyme, and imagery, right? And you're always just trying to chase that next idea or chase that next image, and that's kind of like what I like about it.
Yeah. And you can't get off of it. Yeah, it's almost impossible to get away from it, which then makes me real. And then I also read scripts, right? Almost for a living. Like right now, my theater festival, the Downtown Urban Theater Festival, we just received 113 scripts for next summer's, hopefully it'll happen next summer's festival. So I got to read 113 scripts and pick 16 plays out of 113 to put in the festival.
That's bananas.
Now, if I wasn't into poetry, I wouldn't even be able to read the scripts because compared to the poetry that I read and I love and I learn by heart, the scripts are booty. They're horrible. They're terrible. The use of language, you have gems here and then. You got some people that have the nerve to say like, oh, so-and-so's play is poetic. No, it's not. It's not poetic. All right. And so if you have poetry, which is filled, and my number one thing at this point in time is imagery, because look at what we're doing right now. We're sitting because of the technological advances in digital communication and the pandemic, we're sitting here on this screen, all right? So this screen is my enemy if I'm trying to write imagery. This is my opposition, all right? I want to do better with that. I want to do better than this. Here, I'm looking at you right now. I want to write a poem that's better than what I see. And I don't mean that can I describe you better than what I'm looking at through this screen?
Right.
That's my challenge. All right. Can I describe a smell? Can I describe the disgusting, nasty smell of that water that hot dogs boil in out in Manhattan? The nasty hot dog trucks. I don't even know if that happens anymore, but can you do that? All right. Can you describe a fish taco without anybody understanding it's a fish taco until you put some topping on it at the end of the poem? Like, oh, he was just talking about a fish taco. But if I wrote it so that people could smell it, they'd know right away. So then I'm showing them, how do you show scent? As a poet, how do you show scent? How do you show feel? Like just the senses, to engage the senses as a poet That's the challenge of a lifetime.
Yep.
How do I write that? You could easily say something stinks. That's so easy. But can you dig? Can you dig? Smells like what? That smells like one of the easiest prompts in the world. Okay, there's a dead body rotting in this row house, right? And you don't know it's a dead body, but as you walk up on, you smell something, and you don't exactly know what it is, but you smell a dead dog before a dead cat. Okay, but this is intense. How do you describe it without telling us it is until it's over?
Mm-hmm.
The punchline, the poetic punchline, I guess people call it. All right, but that's where the challenge is. That's where the challenge is. People, who's around? Somebody talk to me.
We have another question from Facebook. Lately, my poems are becoming characters. It's probably my playwriting background seeping through. If you're constructing a poem from a specific point of view that's not yours, do you become that character or do you bring that character to your personality?
Mm.
Base it on feelings first. All right. You don't have to, you and I don't have to know each other. We don't have to know anything about each other. But there's got to be something about the way we feel that is familiar or is similar. All right. If I am sewing a mask because I want extra protection for the pandemic and I'm adding another piece of fabric on it, and I pinch myself with that needle, right? Now you may have tougher skin or thinner skin, whatever. But when you pinch yourself with that needle, that's a shared experience. And I don't know you from the man in the moon and vice versa. So it's the shared experiences. All right. When you say jump into become that character, is that the way you become the character? You smell things, you feel pain, you know when it's hot or it's cold, you know when your stomach's grumbling because you're hungry, you know what it feels like to get a haircut, all right? You know what it feels like to get punched in the face, whatever it is. Do you become that character based on actual feelings? All right, be abstract when they create characters like, well, this person is like you see stage directions. The person I'm speaking to, if you're a playwright, you see stage direct, you write stage directions. How often are you using stage directions to try to explain to the director or the cast who this person is? But do you use stage directions to tell the director and the cast how they're supposed to feel? Now, if you don't do that, then your words in the plays that the words that your characters are speaking, they better be telling the actor or the director how that character is supposed to feel. So for me, the questions you ask is based on how do you feel that's similar or universal. That's one thing. Now, if you feel a specific, special way and you're able to put it down on a piece of paper or make a character feel that special way, and I don't even know what that is anymore. All right. Like, I don't know what it's like to be high off oxycodone. I don't know what that's like. Some people do. I mean, who's sitting here knows what it's like to be high off of oxycodone? All right. Or who knows what it's like to eat snails? Or how do you feel if you eat? There's so many things that people do that we don't share as human beings, but think of all the things we do share. Who's ever shaved themselves, like women shaving their legs, men shaving their face, and you cut yourself? Now, forget about the blood and the pain or the sting. What about the way you beat yourself up after you cut yourself? You're like, man, come on, man. How could you cut? How could you cut yourself? That's a universal feeling. It doesn't have to be shaving. How could you do that? How could you miss that exit? Come on, you've been driving back. How did you miss that exit? How did you not pick up your change when it came into the little machine at the cashier at the supermarket? You forgot your change now. You used the automatic teller. I left $27 in the machine. I'm running back to get it. It's gone. You know it's gone. So, in terms of characters in plays, find out what the universal feeling is, then find out, take that same feeling and make it specific, sculpt it, chop it down. Use your own personal experience for this broader universal theme. Then you start to become unique, which means you start to become brilliant. And people read your plays or they hear your characters on stage and go like, "Whoa, I never would have said it like that. I know what he's talking about, but I would have never used those words." which is why Shakespeare becomes such an important thing for all of us, even today. And I hate people telling me how Shakespeare is so important and so relevant today, because most of it's not. But his ability to construct characters and to put his ability to take one word and play it against another word is still in 2020 brilliant. Very few people can do it. Very few people can pull that off. So I hope that answered that person's question. Anyone else? Boy, everyone's so quiet. I know this is a bad time, right? In New York City, 5 o'clock, 5:30. Who does a workshop at 5:30, 5 o'clock in New York City or New Jersey? Well, where you at in the Midwest? You said you were in the Central Time Zone.
I'm in Iowa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if
Have
you
you
don't
written
know what
poems
it
about
is, it's okay because most of us don't either.
what? Let me ask you this here, but let me tell you what I know about Iowa. The craziness with the voting. All right. Just
Not to
that, just
say
but that's
first
it.
one.
But that's all I know. But that's not a reflection of you. But I'm like, you're in this workshop. That means you're artistic in some way, shape, or form. That means you kind of gotta be open. All right. So I think most artists are good people. I could be
Yeah, I
wrong,
hope so.
but
Like, I'm trying to be okay. On your last mentioning, would you suggest kind of like almost like a Meisner technique for like performance, where you create this like imaginary circumstance and then you make those real choices when performing in your poem within this imaginary circumstance that you created from this outline? Kind of.
yeah.
That's what I was trying to get. That's what I was kind of getting from it.
But check this out though. How often anyone who's sitting here uses like say the hot topic on the news as a prompt to write a poem? Who hasn't done that sitting in this workshop? That a news flash has not come along, all right? And you go like, I'm gonna write about that because I feel about that. I'm gonna try blah blah. How many of you, for instance, here, who hasn't been affected some way, shape, or form by cops killing black people? All right, even if you ain't black person, it's got like, damn, come on, man. It's like at the point, it's almost like, come on already. That's a little bit too much. All right, even if somebody did something wrong, you can't have more humanity than that. Right. So all of us have been there. Who sitting here has written a poem from the point of view of the person who was shot and killed? All right. Who's done that?
Word, yeah.
Who's created that kind of character? All right. In your poem. All right. Who has the nerve, the courage, the wherewithal, the use of language to pull that off? So to kind of go back to here, you have to be creative. Whatever happened to creative? I'm so sick of photojournalism poetry. I just can't take it anymore. I can't take like the headline rhymes. I can't take it anymore because, and every once in a while you hear something that's dope, but for the most part, it's like, yo, I don't even read the paper no more, but I could just Google so and so and get that and maybe get better language than you just gave me in your poem because it's about use of language. When's the last time you heard something about a topic you knew and had strong feelings about, but then you go like, whoa, I never thought of it like that. I never saw it that way. My sense of awareness is not that keen because I'm not as keen as this person because I never saw it like that. All right. That's what we as poets, writers, actors, playwrights, you need to be connected in that way. All right, here, perfect example. Here's a title, just the title of a poem that I love by Amiri Baraka. Just the title. Tell me, somebody who's sitting here, tell me what this title does to you. Is it ambiguous? Does it create imagery? Does it conjure up any kind of emotions? Here's the title: Incriminating Negrographs. Incriminating Negrographs. Is that an intellectual exercise? Does that make anybody feel anything? Do you see a picture of it? What is a Negrograph? All right, we know incriminating. All right, did Amiri make up Negrograph? Is that in the dictionary? What does it mean? Does it conjure anything? But that's creativity. And then here, so now that's the title. So I read the title, Incriminating Negrographs. Okay, I know incriminating. Incriminating is kind of intangible. It's not anything you could put a picture on. Negro, okay, I got a picture when I say Negro. Graph, I got a picture when I say that. I didn't even know they were words. The first line of the poem is this. This is after I read the title. I've been, whoa, that's quite a title. The first line of the poem is this. It goes, okay, pause, shuffle. Okay, pause, shuffle. Incriminating Negro graphs. Okay, shuffle. Next line. Here, I won't even go off past that. What is that conjuring? Okay, shuffle. Dimitri, what's the picture? Okay, shuffle. What's the
Taking
picture?
taking a bunch of different historical pictures of things happening throughout like Black history, and saying, "Okay, shuffle." So the first thing I think of is that trauma, especially coming from Amiri in the Black Arts movement. So you're just
Okay, so
shuffling different types of trauma.
if you don't know Amiri, let's say you don't know who he is, all right? So we take him out of the equation and you read it and then read the first line. Where's your head at? You
I
don't know what
think
he represents or
I
what he
think the
stands
jail
out.
cell.
You
Like
say
The
jail
line that
cell.
yeah, like someone inside like the ward, like they're wearing these orange suits and they're like hey, get out of your cell. Like okay, like come on, shuffle out type of deal. Like they're forcing people
And
to do
that's
something against
and
them.
you know what's remarkable about that? That is not Dimitri's picture. That is
yeah.
not Dimitri's picture. So to me, Dimitri's life, his existence, his education, the way he was raised plays into that not being his picture. But that's your picture. And now you, as a writer, artist, you could play off of that. This is my picture.
Mm.
But now, and the greatest of all artists, and I hope all of you sitting in this session, if you call yourself an artist, here's one rule that you can leave with today that you should never forget. Forget about remembering, never forget. When you create art, you have to create it in such a way that it allows the listener slash reader, viewer, freedom to imagine. I'll say it again. You create art that allows the viewer, listener, reader freedom to imagine. Stop trying to lead people to the Kool-Aid, the poison Kool-Aid, or the delicious lemonade. All right. That's not your job. Your job is to allow them the freedom to use their creativity. All right. And you're a stepping stone or a sounding board. Your art is a stepping stone or a sounding board to allow them to be more creative. That's a big responsibility. Okay, so incriminating Negro graphs. First line, okay, shuffle. Second line, stink in neon, stink in neon. Now put that together. Incriminating Negro graphs, okay, shuffle. Next line, stink in neon. What is that? Stink in neon. Next line, lion lights. Stink in neon, lie in lights. Where we going, Dimitri?
We're in
Where's
prison
Amiri
now.
going?
We're in prison now. I'll
Where's
lie.
Amiri going?
I would lie to you if I'm gonna try to run with that picture idea that I had.
I got you. So stinking neon lion lights. Okay, check this out. Now I won't do the whole poem, but here's some visual. Here's some imagery. He calls this person. He's describing a person. He's describing the epitome of Uncle Tom. And probably when he wrote the poem, and I don't know, I kind of know because we were talking about it because I was always interested in it. But he always had a thing about Clarence Thomas, right?
Mm.
Always. All right. Like he had a poem called Tom Ass Clarence.
Mm.
But when I was talking to him, I'm thinking like, okay, this got something to do with Clarence Thomas or what Clarence Thomas represents. So now later in the poem, he says, he calls this character in the poem Oreo serial killer. Oreo serial killer. Now, what kind of picture is that? Anybody jump in. Oreo serial killer. What is the image? What does that mean? Oreo serial killer. So, and that's what we have to do as artists, make people think. make people stew over what you've created. It ain't about always just letting them in. All right, don't dumb people down. Make challenge them every step of the way. It makes you better. It makes the people who respond to your art that much better. You want the challenge. You don't want the don't you do not want to take the easy way out. All right. It's hard enough to just write a good poem. That's hard enough in it. Dimitri, how many great poems you got?
Probably like, I don't know. I don't want to sound conceited.
You
It's like
ain't,
no,
but
it's like
that,
no.
well, but
Um,
wait a minute, wait. You ain't talking to these 14 or 15 other people that's in the box here. You talking to me. They
yeah,
happen to be here kind of like listening.
yeah.
They're
I
almost
mean,
voyeuristic at this point.
yeah. To
Because if
be
they're not going to
honest,
talk to me like that, then you and I will share, all right, and
yeah.
they'll get something from it. Ain't got
All
to
right.
do it. I didn't ask you to be egotistical. I asked you how many great poems do you have, from poet to poet,
Yeah.
and I
From
don't even call myself that, all right. But how many great poems do you have?
every poem that I consider finished,
How many poems do you have in general?
probably about 50 or 60.
That's all the poems you have in your lifetime?
Well, no, but oh, okay. So yeah, now I see how I see how you're getting me there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would say about 50 or 60, maybe out of the like 150 to 200, I would assume.
That you would
And then
feel
scraps.
confident, yeah, that you would feel confident at any time to go and step in front of a group of people or a group of ears and say your thing
Oh yeah.
in hopes that you would do what to them? What do
To
these words that you've written and composed, what does it do to an audience's
um
ears?
to inspire, make them evoke different images, make them think in a
Okay,
different setting.
inspire.
Yeah.
Everyone listening, inspire, invoke different images. What else? Tell me some more.
Teach. Every poem should
Teach.
teach.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Varying
How do you,
perspectives.
yeah, do you start from the top of a poem thinking, I'm going to shed some wisdom? I'm going to shed some wisdom with this. Do you ever
Dang.
begin there?
Nah, it usually starts with a line or two or an idea. I mean, I guess sometimes you can. Sometimes if you're writing like social justice pieces or like let's say sometimes you write poems that your earlier self needed to hear, you know, or that you're gonna need to hear later on. Then I think it depends on the poem if you're gonna go in and really have it say, listen, that this is gonna teach. But when you're writing a poem, I think by the end of every poem, a poem's finished when someone's able to learn something from it. And
What's the best line? What's the best line of a poem you've ever written?
um, Mother Botanica morphed 99 cents of sliced bread into dough balls for breakfast.
Do it again, but read it to us like it's the greatest thing you've
Okay.
ever written.
Mother Botanica morphed 99 cents of sliced bread into dough balls for breakfast.
So everyone who's sitting, that's how you theatricalize poetry. When you know it is brilliant, and the reason you know it's brilliant because you've sculpted, edited, worked on it, sweated over, bled over it, and it's sitting there on the page. That's how you theatricalize. You don't need any tricks. You don't need to be a seasoned thespian. You need to say it and use all of the work and sweat and blood and tears that you put into it. That's what comes out of your mouth when you say it. Those are the emotions you conjure up. All right. Which is why there's so much bad acting in the world because there's bad scripts. Most actors, we think they're great. And if we look at the script, we go like, wait a minute, I love Denzel in Training Day. He got an Oscar. Then you look at the script, you go like, oh my God, how did he do that? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. As a poet, you have no, all of you people here as poets, you have no business writing anything that someone could look at and go like, this is ridiculous.
Mm.
This is totally absurd. This is ridiculous. You're a poet. Your responsibility is to use the language and make it sing. So poets here. So check this out. Y'all know Jeffrey Wright? Who in this room doesn't know who Jeffrey Wright is or some of his accomplishments or what he's done as an actor? All right. The greatest thing that ever happened to me in terms of the theatricalization of poetic expression is to have Jeffrey Wright read things that I wrote as poetry on a Broadway stage.
Mm.
Right? Now, I wrote these poems, I wrote these things as poems. They would turn into poetic monologues, they would turn into song lyrics, a lot of different things. It wasn't until I saw him in rehearsal and heard him on stage that I realized, like, whoa, I wrote this. I don't even know what it means when he says it, or it means something entirely different than what I thought it meant when I wrote it. Totally different. And so, all of you, in terms of theatricalization of poetic expression, get someone who's dope to read what you've written. What you learn about yourself when someone who understands the use of language and how to play it, like they're a musician, they know how to play it, all right? You have no idea how much you learn. I have a good friend, Ron Cephas Jones. You all probably know him from This Is Us, all right? But he's done millions and millions of things. Ron Cephas Jones, before anybody knew his name, was in two of my plays, all right? To hear him do that when he was nobody, he's big time now, he was nobody. But to hear him spit these things that I wrote, I learned so much about emotion, inflection, volume, understanding, text analysis, just from his brilliance of interpreting the text. So, all of you, if you want to start to turn your poetry into theater, get good people to read it aloud to you. Very few of us as poets ever get a chance to have a table read of our poems. Who does that? Who does that? I've written a book here. I got a book of poetry I'm going to have published. Have you ever had a table read? Did you ever hire 6 other poets who you know are really good spoken word artists or whatever and sit them around a table, have them read your poem in front of a publisher? All right. Somebody could get published because of that. But we as poets, we don't do that. We don't do that. But just think about that. So here, you ran out a little space, get 6 of your friends. Yeah, I'm getting ready to put a book out. Yo, you want to come and read my stuff? I'll feed y'all. We read some, I drink some tea. I want to hear it. I think I got this is my final manuscript, I think, but I need to hear it. And especially nowadays, 2020, who's not writing to put it up on a stage? Who's not writing poetry to have it said? Who's trying to write it so it's sitting on the page so the elbow patch cats can be like boom, boom, boom? I get that, but they've been running things for too long, right? They taking that elbow patch poetry to the grave with them. It ain't gonna stay alive when they gone. But most of us today, we're writing stuff. We're influenced by hip hop, jazz, murdering police officers. We are influenced by so much energy, so much imagery. We live in a digital age. How often are y'all looking at these screens, pictures all day long, Instagram, selfies, blah, 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 blah. Who's turning that into poetry? Whose imagery is better than their Instagram page? Whose imagery in their poetry is better than their Instagram page, better than their gram? That's where you go. People talk about, oh, I'm having writer's block. Go to your
Wow.
Instagram page, look at the pictures, and write a poem about the pictures.
I feel so seen.
Where were you at? Huh?
I feel so seen. That what I'm saying
What do
is
you
what you're
mean?
saying is totally true. What you're saying is totally true. It's like we're so into like just the world. The arts are competing with like social media now, right? So it's like, how do you bring that to the masses, and how do you make people see that beauty again, right? That beauty in the 90s at the New Eurekan, or like, at the height of like the beats and the black arts movement in the 60s and 70s. And I feel like that's what a lot of writers are trying to get towards. And you're just speaking truth right now.
Well, here, let me tell you here. Let me give you a perfect example. And this is just my opinion, my estimation. But how come there are not more spoken word records out in the world?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to tell me that. And yet, the greatest spoken word record in the history of my lifetime just won a Pulitzer Prize, and it's called To Pimp a Butterfly. That ain't no hip hop record. That's a poetry record.
Mm.
That is not a hip hop record. That's a spoken word / poetry record. winning a Pulitzer Prize. And somebody realized that. And the reason why it's not a hip hop record is because the cats that made the music, and I hope anybody who likes that record or respects and reveres that record, they know the cats who made the music. And the cats who made the music did not sit down and say, okay, Kendrick comes in the studio and he says to Robert Glasper's like, yo, I got this beat. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, tell me if you like it. This ain't Pharrell. This ain't Kanye. This ain't Jay-Z. Come listen to this beat. Come listen to this beat. Them cats read Homeboy's stuff. They read his stuff, was influenced and felt it, made the music, and then it was a synthesis.
Mm.
That's why there's hardly anything on that record that's a head bop. It's not about that. It's like almost a quintessential example of the melding of text and music. And you got some dope cats that made the music for that record. They're the dopest cats in the contemporary jazz today. Terrence Martin, Kamasi Washington, Robert Glasper, and on and on and on. But they didn't go like most hip hop producers, like, dude, come on in. Why don't you come listen to these beats? That's played out, which is why hip hop's playing out. Come listen to these beats. Come listen, like how I can make a trap beat and go on GarageBand. I don't know jack shit about music. I can make a trap beat, all right? But you got these cats that are real musicians. And then Homeboy, who's a real artist, he's like, that's not his style. He's used to going listening to the beats, listen to the tracks. He's he's been breastfed on hip hop pablum, Kendrick. So that's what he knows. And all of a sudden, because he knew Terrence, and Terrence was connected to Kamasi, Kamasi was connected to Glasper. Look at the work that Robert Glasper has done with, like, even Mos Def, before Mos became who he is now. All right, think about that. All right, or when Mos was doing Black Jack Johnson, and he had the cat from Fishbone playing the lead guitar, and he had Bernie Worrell from Funkadelic playing the keyboards, and he had the two rhythm section cats from In Living Color. All right, and that band, that should have been the baddest band in the world ever. But the record company's like, nah, I don't think so. And so we as poets, look at who we're talking about. I'm talking about cats who got their own homes, they got big cars, they got the best insurance. If one of them had to have heart surgery, they could probably afford it through their insurance. Right? We poets. God forbid any of y'all get a heart condition. Have you made it in the world with your art to such a degree that your health insurance is going to help you if you got to have a heart transplant? Hell no. You're a poet. Which is one of the reasons why, if you could take your poetry and turn it into theater, you better do it. Why shouldn't you get paid for it? Why should all of you sitting here who write poetry, why should you not make money off of it? And you ain't got to change what you're doing. You got to change what you call it. If Kendrick called To Pimp a Butterfly a spoken word record, it wouldn't have sold jack. Titles, just what you call it. Is poetry theater? Well, if I say so. But the first rule in any kind of theater, from off-Broadway to high school productions to Broadway, every producer wants a low-risk investment. The lowest risk investments in the artistic world are people who call themselves POET. Single light, single mic, let's roll. One mic here, Nas says, all I need is one mic. Do you think he was kidding? You think Nas would joke? All I need is one mic, one mic, one mic. It's a low risk investment. All of you are low risk investments if you find the right producer. If anyone who sits here and got 22 poems and you know how to string, or 12 poems, you got a dozen dope poems, you know how to string them together with a little lighting, a little music, you find the right producer, give you a couple $1,000, run out of space, you could roll. And because it's a low risk investment, you don't have to charge $50 for a ticket. You ain't trying to pack 100,000 people in a spot. You get a small space, 50 seats, 12 poems, little music, you can have a bass player, a little lighting, some candles, whatever, as long as what you've written is dope. if it's good, if the text is brilliant. 50 seats, and all of a sudden, like, yo, Dimitri got this show he calls, like this poetry show he calls MFA. We needed to go check it out. Where is it at? It's at so and so and so. Yeah, it's 45 seats in there. How much? $5. And it's sold out for 6 months. People can't even get in there. And all of a sudden, you building up your bank account, and you're gonna have this insurance for your heart attack. You got to build it up like that. Any questions, thoughts? Anybody jump in?
You just did my whole savings plan, bro.
Well, it ain't about here, but I'm not. This is not hypothetical.
Yeah.
I lucked out. I lucked out. I'm writing poetry. I write a poem that gets on MTV Spoken Word Unplugged. Savion Glover sees it. I don't know Savion Glover from the Man in the Moon. He just happens to be channel surfing, and he catches me reading this poem, and he tracks me down because he heard me read this poem. If that ain't God, if that ain't God, there is no God. If that's not God or a higher being or Allah, Jehovah, Judah, Buddha, I don't know what is. Right?
So,
He happened to be channel surfing, waiting to go to the airport to get on an airplane to come back east. Tracks me down. I don't know him. I know him from the movie Tap. That was it. I didn't know he was the greatest tap dancer alive. He gets in touch with me, said like, "Yo, dude," and you know what he asked me? "How did you get them people to let you say that on TV?" That's what he asked me. How did you let those? How did you get? I said, "I didn't do nothing. I manipulated the whole thing."
wow.
Like he thought I manipulated the network people to let me get on TV to read the poem about one kid killing another kid for his sneakers. I said, I don't know, it just happened. And then he said, well, we need to do something together and make something happen. I never wrote theater in my life. A year and a half later, I'm nominated for 2 Tony Awards. The show's nominated for 9 awards. We win 4 awards. We make $10 million. That's ridiculous. And check this out. The show was a low risk investment. No scenic design, mostly black box space, very little costume, very contemporary stuff. So for the producers, even if for a Broadway show, it was a low risk investment. And most of the text was poetry. It was poetry. And I'm getting paid. Say it again.
That I just wanted to say that show was the first musical that I ever saw. And
Are you serious?
Also, yeah. And I'm not a poet. I'm a comedian. But I feel like what you said about To Pimp a Butterfly is like what I want to do. I grew around the New Yorker and just afraid to call myself a poet. And then I started as a dancer, and to make money from dancing, I would string how I would talk about different choreography pieces I made, and that would be a one-man show. And I was coming from theater, but now I'm trying to put I'm trying to be on the flip and like put more poetry or find the poetry in my theater, like find the imagery and textual like juice in the sauce that I feel like is like dead and kind of burnt out in my journey of of becoming a becoming a stand-up comedian. So like I see like this experience with the poetry, I try to inflect it into my stand-up material. And I want, and my intention is that my comedic material will sound like poetry. And I feel like the premises that I want to talk about, like systemic racism, like when I go into an open mic, I get shut down because it's not a setup punchline joke. And I feel like like being in a poet community people will sit with ideas more. And I feel like my delivery as a comedian is more poetic. And I wanted to speak to how can, like, I don't know, just like speaking onto the flip of that, like how you take theater and you say you read all these scripts that have no, like, or a lot of them, nothing. And like, I feel like that's kind of where I am, because I've been afraid to kind of put afraid to put that unapologetic in my own stand-up, like my stand-up line that I will die or etch on my body is that, I was raised in the suburbs. Now it's not bad being from the suburbs, but being Black from the suburbs is paradoxical because you say things like paradoxical.
which we love. And somebody who's sitting here right now is going to take that and put it in one of their poems. Trust me, trust
Done.
me. You just said paradoxical. All right. First of all, it's a multi-syllable word. Most poets look for multi-syllable words that have imagery attached to them. Now, paradoxical is intangible. There's no picture attached to that. All right, unless you're a deep thinker. It's intangible. But there's somebody sitting here right now who's going to take that word and it's going to become a poetic brilliance. And based on how you used it, how you personally used it, the emotion and energy and the story you were telling to get paradoxical out of your mouth. You gave us feeling. You said coming from the suburbs, blah, 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 blah. Right? Some people sitting here can relate to it. Some people sitting here can't relate to it. But you just taught a bunch of people who never use that word what paradoxical means. You just gave it to us in a living, breathing organism. And I don't know how well you dance, but let me tell you something as a writer. Me as a writer, I can call myself that because I've had some success at it in my own mind because somebody else telling me. All right. But the greatest lessons I've learned were from Savion Glover, who taught me that he is a better storyteller than I'll ever be with his feet than I can with words. Destroys me. John Coltrane could tell a better story about segregation, police brutality, all right, bigotry than I ever could with words. To convey complicated emotions through movement is second only on the list of arts to music. Music comes first, movement comes second, visual cinema third, writing is on the bottom of the pole. It is on the bottom of the pole because writing is an intellectual exercise. I write something, you got to have a certain framework or brain working in a certain way to get what I'm talking about. You hear a melody, you don't need nothing intellectual. You see movement, graceful movement, no intellectual is involved. You see cinema, visual pictures, Basquiat painting. Who could intellectualize Jean-Michel Basquiat's writing with death? Who can intellectualize that? So as a dancer, if you're really a good dancer, and what that means is you love it and you believe in it, you tell your stories that way. And you pepper the words into your dance like it's cayenne or spice for a stew. Don't get away from the strength. And if you're a stand-up comedian, that means your strength lies in timing. So it's not really strange that you are a dancer. You just said your timing is the shit. You just said that. Yo, my timing is the shit. Because you've heard poets, you've been to poetry reads, you're like, yo, they blew that. They didn't know how to hit that. They didn't know how to hit that. You sitting there, listen, that's dope. That's dope. Oh, they screwed it up because they didn't know how to hit it. They didn't know when to come back. They didn't know how to hit it. They don't know the timing. Yeah.
I,
Your man
I,
got to be Richard Pryor.
oh,
Oh, yeah, just here. Did you ever think of just listening to Richard Pryor? Right? And just
yeah,
here, have you listened to Richard Pryor? I'm sure you know him. Have you listened to
yes.
Richard Pryor and interpreted some of his words through movement?
N-
That's a
no.
project, bro. That's a project.
Yeah.
That's a project. Take any one of his stand-ups, or take one segment here. Here, remember if you know his work. Remember
Yeah.
when he did. Remember when he did like he was working for the mafia.
Yes.
Do you remember that? All right. Do you know what kind of movement you could create from just him talking that using the Italian voicing and all this other about the gangsters and the mafia?
Yeah.
That makes it's hilarious, but there's serious in-depth storytelling going along with that. Now, for you to listen to it and then interpret it in movement, then after you've made the choreography, then now add your own text to that. Steal from him, then create your own shit. Sample from Richard, create movement around Richard's rhythms, his timing, his imagery, then put your own text in it. He uses garlic, you use cayenne. You know what I'm saying? And then, bro, you're a low risk investment for a producer because you could dance. You can be funny. You can be deep. You're a low risk investment. All you got to do is show the world that you do these things. I'm unique. Why? Because I could dance and not dance. Because you know, when you black and you say dance, they think of some cool minstrel nonsense. So this just semantics. I create movement. I'm a choreographer. All right. Or here, perfect tagline. Hold on a second. The perfect tagline is that you convey complicated emotion through movement. That could be on your business card. Conveys complicated emotion through movement. Somebody read that on a card, nothing else. Your name, email creates complicated emotions. All right. People be intrigued by that. What does that mean? Olivia, can you hear me?
Yes, we are.
I gotta go. I got a
Yeah.
break. I was supposed to stop at 1:15.
Yep.
Yo, thank all of you. Thank you all for hanging in. Dimitri, thanks,
Thanks,
man,
Reg.
and my man MFA.
Peace,
I'll
buddy.
talk to y'all soon. Everybody, please stay healthy and happy.
Thank you.
Buddy.
Peace and
Thank you
love.
so
Peace and
much
love.
We'll see
Later.
you.
for the
Everyone, take it
culture.
easy.
Peace.